Ligris, your real estate attorney, and I am here with two incredible people. First of all, we have Mariam from EXP Realty. How are you, Mariam?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. And the none other than Ross Billings from Cross Country Mortgage. How are you, Ross?
I am fantastic. Great to be here.
Well, I love this duo that we're here talking to because Mariam, if you do not know, is like the queen of new constructions, new conversions, just staging, all the things. And then Ross obviously has like all these incredible products to work from. And I feel like, Mariam, your market is a highly competitive one where you do have a lot of influx of cash, a lot of cash buyers, and sort of that's what sellers are really kind of expecting these days. So I know, Ross, there's a new program that could help home buyers who are financing compete with that kind of buyer. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my company, Cross Country Mortgage, we had started sort of the wave way back in like 2018 or 2019 of what's called a fast track pre-approval, which is where we fully credit underwrite and asset underwrite any pre-approval. So we actually send it through underwriting with a TBD address, and it is looked at just like you already had a house under agreement. So you'll go through and you'll get all of the conditions, updates and letters, so that by the time you're done, all you need is basically an appraisal and your clean title to close. You can close super quick. Everything else is done. Well, recently we've taken that sort of a step further to what's called a Cash Plus program. And what the Cash Plus program does is it takes the fast track, sort of beefs it up a little bit. There's a couple small overlays on top of it, but it allows you to make an offer with a backup cash offer. So basically, it allows you to eliminate a mortgage contingency, an appraisal contingency, and allows you to say, hey, if my buyer doesn't close, Cross Country is going to buy the home. And then what we'll end up doing is we'll buy the home, we'll fix whatever issue there was, and then the buyer can buy it.
Wow.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it actually allows you to sort of eliminate that question that some people do.
Yes, and it opens the door for so many more buyers to have their offer looked at legitimately. Because once you're competing with 5, 6 or more offers, and you have only 5, 10, 20% down, traditionally speaking, they're going to put you on the bottom of the file and say, we'll get to that in case the other cash offers back out, etc. But now you're going to the file, they're going to look at you as a legitimate offer. You can cross off some of the contingencies that you wouldn't have been able to cross off before without being protected. So it really opens the door. There's a lot of great buyers out there who really want to compete in this market.
It's huge because I remember, I still remember, it's so funny. It was a house in not Andover, in Arlington. It had showed up on Boston Today. You know how they they feature a home on one of these websites.
Boston.com house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My clients who have been clients for years, they saw it. They went and saw it. They fell in love with it. They had just bought a home like a year before, and it was so competitive. This was again 10 years ago, and they waived their mortgage contingency, and I was dying every day, checking with the loan officer. Are we going to be okay? Are we going to be okay? Obviously it's becoming more commonplace now. That was my first waived contingency and I was freaking out. But for a lot of buyers, obviously that's kind of an extreme, and that they were willing to take a risk, and it's becoming more commonplace now. But for a lot of buyers, it just doesn't sit well. And I don't blame them because it is risky. You just never know. But having a program like this where you can have, if you get it, everything done, squared away in time, beautiful. But if not, if there is something that, is a roadblock, you can still close, you don't lose your deposit. And then later you essentially work it out and get it from Cross Country. So, that's such a huge program and positive option for buyers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We try to sort of stay ahead of the market, try to figure out the best way to, make it as competitive as possible. Yeah. Similar to you, I've seen people waive mortgage contingency, and even when they ask me, I have prided myself on 2016. I've never pre-approved a loan that couldn't close if it didn't have something to do with the property. It's never been a buyer issue. So, you know, I take great pride in that, but still, like, people like, hey, can I waive my mortgage contingency? I was like, well, you can.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I've seen people lose a job 3 or 4 days before closing. I've seen people make that coveted mistake that we all joke about and buy an Audi 4 days before closing. And like, you know, human error, there are things that can happen. And, you know, fortunately, we were able to overcome some of that stuff and still close. But like you said, there's always that chance. So really, you know, personally, I have waived that before because I said, okay, you know, I am prepared to buy it in cash and then finance it later if I have to. But if like that's not an option, you know, this is the next best thing where, you know, you can have the solidity of being able to close and making sure, you know, and then if it's, you know, if you don't quite qualify for the cash plus program, our traditional fast track pre-approval where you are fully credit underwritten, you are fully asset underwritten, you are fully income underwritten, just as if you already had a product, get you as close as possible. Most people really take that as, hey, I'm making an offer with a full commitment. You know, some of my clients, I even, you know, suggest, and when I have conversations with realtors, I've said, hey, you know, you have this fast track pre-approval, go ahead and put your whole deposit at escrow, go ahead and do this or whatever. And it just strengthens, you know, it sort of solidifies you as a buyer saying, yes, I have the money. Yes, I have the pre-approval. Yes, I have the commitment letter. You know, I know I'm not cash, but I'm as good as possible. So,
Yeah. And from your perspective, Mariam, because although you work with a lot of buyers, you also work with a lot of sellers. And so you see the things that have, you know, make decisions for it, not necessarily make decisions for it, but like the things that are tilting sellers from one perspective to another in terms of buyers and multiple buyer offer situations. And I'm sure that those types of programs, even just the full underwriting, I forgot what it's specifically called, but like that type of program, again, with someone who's going to call you as a list agent, let's say, and explain like, hey, this is what's going on with my buyer, has great weight.
Absolutely. So when we present offers, we explain to the seller very carefully. It's not always the cash offer that's going to be your best offer. Let's take a look at closing dates, any contingencies they might have, et cetera, home inspection, so many other factors. But at the end of the day, when a seller sees a cash offer with no other contingencies, it's very hard for us to say, you know what, there are other good offers. Let's take a serious look at them because one just happens to stand out.
Yeah.
So in that option to have your typical buyer who's not able to put cash, it's so important because I can say, listen, we can call the lender. It's already underwritten. There's already so many factors that have gone into pre-approving this buyer and making sure they legitimately qualify that are not going to stand in your way. So it really helps. And I know just on the seller's end, when presenting offers, I always call the lender and find out the details of that particular offer, et cetera. And I know Ross is always available to explain in case any agents don't understand that and how that works. So
Yeah.
it's
I would have already beaten you to it. I always call the agent as soon as we can.
Exactly.
What do you, I guess, what do you think, you know, a buyer who maybe is coming from another country to buy, are there options? Because I think that, you know, we both work with a lot of international buyers too. So from that perspective, we kind of covered new construction generally, but from a perspective of the, you know, the buyer who's coming to you to purchase a property from out of the country, are there options? What have you seen, Mariam, maybe in areas that tend to be popular and like what's important to them and like how to navigate like the cultural differences? And then like working with a loan officer like Ross.
So what I see from a lot of international buyers, if they're coming here, is they're a little bit shocked at the older homes that we have and the style of home that we have. So they tend to like a more modern construction. They tend to like something that's a little bit more updated, et cetera. So the price points are a little bit higher. And I can see that coming into New England, we have a lot of older homes. So to get them approved, to get them in the areas that might have, if they're moving here, they're probably moving here for work. So that has an easy commute to Boston, Cambridge, Alston, whatever. And they're looking at areas like Arlington, Medford, and a little bit out right now because of the price point. But they tend to look at the newer construction homes and the renovated homes.
Yeah.
So
We just talked for a second, and I think that's, you know, it's funny to me to hear someone say that, especially, you know, I'm no sense of the world. I'm Boston born and bred, but I feel like houses are so much older in the rest of the world. So it's sort of funny to hear, like, in such a young country, such a young place. I mean, you know, in the country, we have the oldest houses there. But, you know, going to Portugal, you're going to see houses from, you know, 1540. Like, it's funny to me.
Yeah, it is interesting.
But to sort of talk about some of the options we have for that, like not a lot of people know some of the great options that are available. A lot of people coming from different countries think that they have to use alternative products or, you know, alternative brokerages that historically charge significantly higher fees, significantly higher rates, and they're just like, oh well, this is what I have to do, it's okay. I really, you know, I pride myself on reading as much as I can. You know, I made a reel about it the other day. Is like, it's enough that like my team pokes fun of me just because I think that like knowing as much as you can to like solve whatever situation may come up for you. I think being prepared, and you know, that's something I got from, you know, Boy Scouts and Eagle Scout way long ago, is being prepared for anything that comes your way is really important, because just like we said, it's a fluid situation. So there is going to be stuff that comes up. There's going to be stuff that pops up. Having the tools, which I have in my company, and then having the knowledge to be able to know where to go for those tools is important. So like something that not a lot of people realize is Fannie and FHA will actually finance an ITIN borrower. There is you know, certain other, again, stipulations, being both government insured and government backed. They do have to have legal status. So that means, you know, a visa, green card, and being able to prove that you're here legally, even if that means if your visa expired. A lot of people are concerned with this specifically, I think, because of COVID, things have backed up, you know, more and more and more. If you have a visa and then you have applied for it to be renewed because it is expired, that counts as being here legally because you're in the system waiting for that reapproval. So that's okay. But you know, FHA will allow you to go as little as 3.5% down, Fannie 3 to 5% down, and will allow that still with an ITIN borrower with a legal status. You know, if you know, we don't have a visa present or anything, there is brokerage options that we do have that, again, FHA will allow ITIN borrowers without proof of legal status. And you know, just like I had stated before, possibly like a slightly higher rate, maybe a little bit more fees up front, but there are doable products for that.
Yeah, but if you're only having to put down a certain, you know, not what I would expect that you would have to put way more money down.
Right.
So even if maybe you're having to pay a little bit more in fees, it's going to be much less than what I generally have an impression of, where you're having to put a huge chunk of money down plus the fees. So it's,
oh yeah, a lot of people I've talked to in the past, like, oh, I had to put 30% down on my first house, and it cost me, you know, 4 points up front just to get it. So
exactly. Yeah, and I think that people just presume like you have to go to like an international bank that does that. It's banks here also, and that's like kind of your only way. But it's really about information and learning.
So actually, on top of that, like going into, we actually have a fantastic portfolio product called our Signature line. So we have CCM Signature, Signature Expanded, and Signature Platinum. The difference between the three are just qualifications in certain spots. But with that, you know, one of the great things we have, and you know, Liz, when you and I can laugh about this kind of thing, that was not this type of loan, but we can actually finance like foreign nationals. So someone who does not live in the United States, or does not make money in the United States, but is buying a home in the United States. You know, sometimes I've dealt with, you know, Canadian nationals who are buying a home here because they either vacation in New Hampshire, or, you know, because they have a job in Boston, or because, you know, their kid is going to school at Duke, or, you know, I've had all of those types of situations. So our Signature Expanded loan will allow for foreign nationals to purchase using income from a different country. Our Signature Expanded program also actually allows for creative type of income calculations. So bank statement loans, debt service credit ratio, and investor cash flow loans. So, we have a lot of opportunity to finance things that other people can't. So.
I think just in talking about your depth of knowledge, but also the types of programs you have, again, I feel like a lot of people, they go to a place, they say no, and they stop there. And it's a shame because, there's certain lenders, there's certain banks, there's certain mortgage companies that don't do it all. And there's others that do more.
Right.
And so I feel like the message for anybody listening to this should be like, if you're being told no, don't stop there. If like this is what your goal is in life, is to buy a home in Massachusetts, just do it. Find a way. And if you're just being told no without a solution or without a plan, then that's definitely not the person that you should be speaking with.
Absolutely. So, I think that, and I think both of you know me this way, but I've built most of my relationships off of just fixing problems that other people had. And I very much so pride myself in not just saying no. I might say like, hey, not right now, or like, this is what you're going to have to do to get there, or this is what we're looking at, or hypothetically, if this were to happen, this is what we could qualify for, and find a solution. Because, I never want to say, everyone says like, oh, buying a home is the American dream. And I never want to say to someone like, oh, your dream doesn't exist. Like it's something that, if I can say, hey, right now your debt to income is a little high and it's because of this. If we can work on this and you can increase this, then we're getting into a movable situation. I've had people, I have a client right now I've worked with for 3.5 years just to get approved. They are now fast track pre-approved. They have a full pre-approval. They are ready to close on a house. They have to find one, but they're ready. And we've worked on that for 3.5 years. There's a lot of people that say, hey, for the amount of money you make to work for 3.5 years on a deal, why do you do it? These people have 3 kids. They've worked forever just to get to the point that they can be in. And yes, I'll make a little bit of money off that. No more than I would on someone that only took me 2 weeks. But now you better believe, talking to them for 3.5 years, their friends will come and see me. They're, aunts and uncles, and, people have said, hey, there's no way I could buy a house. They're gonna say, oh, yes, you can. Go talk to Ross. And at the same point, like they've walked into open houses, and direct competitors of mine that I know very well, like, hey, you should let me give you a rate too if you're talking to Ross. And they're like, yeah, no, thanks. I'm all set. Because like I've worked with them for so long to be able to do this, there's added value there. I would have beaten their rates anyway, but like, it's there. I think that, that coupled with, like you said, I'm in a company that I truly believe in. The CEO is very, very innovative. He was in my job 20 years ago. He gets it. He makes sure we have the tools of everything that we need to succeed. I've been, just like all of us, everyone down from Mariam to you, have been poached by other companies, and we'll see what's out there. But there's not been one company that's been able to come to me and say, hey, we're better because of this. Someone might say, hey, we have a better rate, and I'll look at it and be like, yeah, it's a little bit better, but like I can offer way more. And so, I'm where I need to be, as successful as I think I can.
I agree.
And I think I would like to mention this. There are lenders and there are lenders. So you can work for whatever company, but the person behind that makes the biggest difference. I know if I'm sending them to you, Ross, they're being taken care of. Their questions are being answered at a very fast pace. And I know you're taking care of the listing side when we do present an offer to make sure that all questions are answered. There's nothing left on the table, and you're running with it. So I've worked with other lenders in the past where it doesn't happen that way. And we're chasing them in order to get the pre-approval. We're chasing them, trying to get them to call the listing agent so the listing agent is comfortable with the approval. I don't have to worry about that with you. I know it's done. And that's such a security on my end that is taken off my plate completely.
Well, I think that just goes to show that a good, well-oiled team is like such a key, because again, like you can get to the closing table, I think, in many situations, eventually, perhaps, but like to be able to get to the closing table in the time frame that works for you, with the best experience, with the best terms, with the best information and manner of explaining, and all those things that like actually like change a perspective of a person's mind to make that person like a raving fan, is which is what we're always looking for, is like to do our job to a point where they want to, you know, refer you for life. Like that comes with the surrounding team too, and like making sure everybody is like on the same page and reflecting the same way in what they do. And like that is a testament to you too, Mariam, and how you handle, you explain. I mean, this is a tough market. It's tough for buyers.
What?
Tough. It's not so tough for sellers, maybe, unless they're buying something after. But it's tough. And so from your perspective, Mariam, like how, because I think Ross touched upon it too, it's like expectation setting, and like how does that sort of play a role in your process with buyers and sellers?
Sellers, it's definitely easier. I mean, we know that if we price it right, market it correctly, put it out there the way we're supposed to, expose it to as many buyers as possible, hold the open houses, hold the showings, we're going to get the offers, and then handle the offers correctly.
Right.
That's fine. But when I'm sitting down with buyers now, I'm putting it out there that this might be a long haul. You're going to lose out on a few offers. Unfortunately, this is the reality. And as you kind of navigate through this, you might not be comfortable with waiving a home inspection initially. That's perfectly normal. But as we go through this process, you'll feel more comfortable about the type of home you're looking at. Maybe we can get an inspection ahead of time, so that's something that you can waive later, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm putting the expectation out there that this is going to be a project, and we're going to have to work together. They're going to have patience with me, and I'm going to have patience with them as well, because it is frustrating. They might call me frustrated that they lost the offer. It's a hard call for me to make to them, that I'm sorry, somebody else's offer got accepted, but I always try to give them the feedback as to why. I think that's, and whenever the listing agent is able to share that with me, that's valuable key information that I can take back to my buyer and say, the offer was this much higher. They waived inspection. They had cash. They waived the mortgage contingency. So let's sit down and talk about how we can do this in the future in order to secure a home for you.
Right. Everything's a learning experience, but yeah. And it's always interesting to me because, you know, luckily for me and off of the hard work of you all, you know, we kind of get involved, you know, once the offer's been accepted. So there's so much background work that you guys have already done to get to the point where I'm talking to them. But that being said, I always ask, like, so how has the process been so far? Like, was this one and done? You went to one open house, you got the, you know, and then how many years has it been? And it varies so much. It's so interesting, but also depending on like, you know, what city, what town, you know, how far away from Boston is it, like right in Boston, you know, all of that plays a factor too in terms of like volume and inventory and all the things. But it's just very interesting. Like although like buying a house seems to be like kind of like a cookie cutter thought process, like you put an offer, you have an inspection or you don't, you have a mortgage or you don't, you sign a P&S and then you close. Like the process seems cookie cutter, but the experience for each person is so different.
Absolutely. And
I
one
always
thing,
sort of joke around and tell people that the process sucks. Our job is to make it suck as little as possible.
Yeah.
And at the end, you get a house. So
Yeah, exactly.
one thing we're trying to do for buyers now too is think outside the box, not just MLS. So we go through expireds, we call neighborhoods. We're in groups trying to network with other agents that might have off-market properties. We just put something together for. So we can't just look at it as, you know, the traditional method of it comes on MLS and we go see it. We have to touch all avenues in order to find the right buyer.
Which is also such a relief, I think, I mean, people are lucky that they have you as an agent, because a lot of agents don't do that. Like a lot of agents, they're on it, they put their clients on a drip and that's it. You know, that whatever's popping up on MLS is what you're seeing, and they're not going necessarily like that's a lot of extra effort that you're putting to find the client a home. You're pulling all your resources, your relationships with other agents, your all of that you're putting in to get your client a home, and that's huge. Huge.
It's a lot of effort, and like you said, it's a big team.
Yeah. Yeah. So just curious, because we're getting close to 30 minutes already, which is insane, so fast. I do want to hear like your sort of number one tip, but do either of you have like an interesting story of something that's happened recently that, you know, is just a good lesson for buyers?
Oh, I'll let Mariam go first because I'll think.
Yeah.
So we're going through something right now with a buyer that was pre-approved on a traditional level, multifamily, etc. But nothing in his price point we could compete with remotely. So if his price point was $700,000 for a multifamily, they were going for $850 to $900, especially if they were done. And we're talking about the Lynn Peabody market.
Yeah.
A little bit, but okay. So we were being outbid. Even if he could max out at $750, that's all he could do. So we had to think outside the box. We found a project that needed some work, but it just was kitchens and bathrooms. And me having some experience with renovations, I could point him to the right people to get new kitchens and bathrooms in. So we had to modify his loan to go into a 203K. We could get the money in order to do the construction, etc., the renovations. It was an interesting process. It is an interesting process. It's a little bit more involved than people think as far as the 203K inspection, but we were able to walk him through it. So there's always a way. There's always a way, just like Ross mentioned.
Story. Yeah, because I think that that's so valuable for people right now, because I think that the old sort of way where, I mean, I still have it in my head, even like just when I look at, you know, listings and stuff. Oh, you can put under asking, always pay for under asking. Like that just is not a story anymore. But for some people, like that's where they want to look. They want to look in what their max is. And if you have to go over, you're kind of putting yourself in a position that you may not ever get accepted in a certain market, obviously. But like being able to open your eyes to other possibilities and say, yeah, it's not what you want now, but it can be, and this is the process, and like walking you through it is huge. So that's awesome. I love that story. What about you, Ross? What do you
I would say that, so I had a conversation with a client the other day, and I say the other day, it was about 3 weeks ago, and they were pre-approved from somebody. They were told that they had to use this specific type of loan. And I looked at the scenario and I said, you know, I'm curious as to why you have to use that type of loan.
Right.
And I was like, you know, how's your credit? Good. You know, how do you have a lot of debt? No. Okay. So these people were 11 days from closing. And what's funny was, so I talked to them on a Sunday. She was currently in the mid part of the country shopping for her wedding dress to come back to here. And Sunday, she's like, I was told I should have called you before. I didn't. Now I'm talking to you because it sounds like, you know, you think there's something really wrong. I was like, hey, you know, let's take a look. So Sunday afternoon, we had a conversation. By Sunday at 3, we had an application. Now, this is someone who had already received commitment, ready to close in a little over a week. And I said, yeah, so I should be able to save you about $18,300 upfront and $210 a month. And I said, well, that's a huge deal, but like, how's the time going to work? I was like, if you want, we will make it work. I was like, send me everything you've sent to the other lender, and I'll tell you if I need anything else. So that was Sunday night. Monday, we had a loan disclosed. Tuesday, we had the home appraised. Wednesday, it was through underwriting. Thursday, we had a full commitment, and we closed the following Monday. So like, I always like to sort of see, and I sort of laugh at, you know, I will never talk badly about other brokerages, but like, I see some of these marketing postings like, oh, you know, deal cleared in only 12 days. And I look at it and I was like, hey, well, that's 20 days. And they're like, oh, it's 12 business days. And I'm like, oh no, I've cleared a loan in 4 business days,
Yeah.
like 4 calendar days. Like that's what we want to do. And so, you know, it is important to talk to someone who really like deep dives in and like looks at different scenarios and looks at everything. We also just started with a new proprietary software that when we're going into lock a loan, it will tell us, hey, you know, based on your parameters, your client also qualifies at these 3 different loans. This one saves $1,287. This does this, does this, this. And then we have to look at the human aspect and be like, no, they're not going to qualify for that because of this. But like by just parameters putting it on an application, they could say, I was like, oh, shoot, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, we can do this loan. And so again, it's just us trying to be as competitive and you know, beneficial to the clients as we can.
I love it. All right. One tip, if you could give your viewers here one tip as a home buyer or seller, just someone in the real estate market, what would it be?
Go to ccmapplynow.com.
Yeah.
No, like I said, I think it's important to I guess, you know, the tip that I give most often, and I think a lot of real estate agents might, you know, not necessarily love the tip. I always look at homes and let me say houses. I look at houses as a business transaction. Right now, with the market that we're in, you may not absolutely love the house that you can afford, but a house is a structure. A home is like what you make it, and you need to be able to not necessarily fall in love with something that makes you make a bad decision. You know, having to stretch yourself in a way that you don't need to, or having to use a product that you don't want to because it's going to cost you more because you're like, I feel like I need to get this house, or like this is the only house that's going to be available for me. Right now, inventory is very difficult. So like, you might feel under pressure. And I think that when you look at it as using your real estate agent to give you the advice that you need, like listening to a lender to tell you about the products you should be using, and like just because you are pre-qualified for something doesn't mean you should spend that. You know, I always tell people there's a couple different numbers. This is what you can spend, this is what you should.
Right.
And I think that it's important that you think about things logically, because at the end of the day, there was a realtor I spoke to, I do a lot of business with recently, and she said, you know what? I have never gone to a closing table and someone said, hey, I really wish I got that one. They've always just been happy and like love the house that they're moving into.
Right.
So
regardless of the type of home
look
or
at it
whatever,
logically more than emotionally.
yeah, it's still an accomplishment either way.
Right.
All right. And Mariam, what about you? What would be one sort of tip that you would give to leave home buyers with?
I would say it's a twofold answer. So first, have a lot of patience when you're entering this as a buyer, because it's going to take some patience. Don't jump at the first thing just because you think you're supposed to jump on every house that's out there if it doesn't feel right for you. Take your time. And second, work with an agent and a team. Make sure the agent has a team that can get you through this, and that the agent is not in a rush to sell you that home either. Because I think there's a big difference in the final outcome, working with someone who's taking their time and working for you versus taking their time and just rushing you through the process in order to just sell you a home.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, because you really shouldn't feel like you're being sold. You should kind of feel that you're being guided. And that's, again, a testament to how you both operate and work. And obviously your successful careers are testaments to that. And so I thank you both for coming on today, chatting about sort of home buying and like what you've been seeing. I really appreciate it. And for all of you who are interested in getting in contact with both Mariam and Ross, I'm going to obviously tag them on the video. I really encourage you to chat with them and learn more about who they are as people and like how they can help you guide you through home ownership. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Liz.
I'll see you guys soon.
All right.
Bye.